Hello, everybody, and welcome to part 2 of our top 12 albums of 2024. Again, I want to apologize for how terrible the intro of the first video was, but the good thing about this being a continuation, we really don't have to do too much of an intro. If you're seeing this video without having watched the first part, which is us going through, we each have our separate lists, and the first part is us going through 12 through 7. So this part's going to be going through 6 through 1, plus a few additional things we're going to talk about, but we'll get to that in a second. So if you haven't watched the first part, please go do that. If this is your first time watching the channel, thank you for being here and checking this list out. We're going to talk for a long time about these artists, so we're kind of like a podcast type deal rather than just a quick flipping through things. So we're definitely not going to upload this to YouTube Shorts. Yeah, thank you for being here. Check out everything else on the channel. Excuse me, I am getting over a cold, so I apologize if I cough or have to blow my nose or something. I'll try to edit the stuff out so that it sounds nice. My drink for this part, I ran out of my Mountain Dew energy drink, which is terrible in the first part. So I just have some mango flavored Tampico juice in my Mountain Dew. And now you can really see that it'll tickle your, It'll tickle your innards. It'll tickle your innards.
You got a lot of that mango Tampico laying around.
Mm-hmm. Well, we buy it in a big jug, like it. And we don't really have, since I don't drink tea and I drink pop, I mostly just drink water, which I do have a thing of water here too. But I generally try to have like a jug of juice or something in the fridge to have if I want something other than just water. And I always limit myself to like a pop a day. If not, I really don't drink pop every day anymore. I drink way less than that, but.
That's crazy. As far as I'm concerned, that's all you drink. You can't have water.
Oh, right.
And,
yeah, because all we
I
do
only
is
ever
this,
see you.
Yeah. With the pop. I know, it definitely seems that way. That's why we had a comment once. It was like, gets cancer, still drinks American soda. Makes sense. I'm like, what? First of all, is there a difference between American soda and other soda? Because maybe, but I'm pretty sure American soda is better.
Before.
Yeah, we have. Deja vu. Deja vu. Okay, so at the beginning of this video, what we are going to do and discuss just real quick here is I wanted us to talk about our honorable mentions and then our disappointing albums. So for me, I have quite a bit to say for the disappointing, but I'm not going to say that much. I'm just going to kind of go over them and talk a little bit about it. Chris, you listened to with me the most disappointing thing this year by a billion miles. You were here with me for actually a lot of these things. And Cody was I actually did reactions to a lot of these albums. And as I've said before, let's talk about disappointing albums first before we do honorable mentions. So now we're in the disappointing albums section. But to me, we've talked about this before. What makes something disappointing? Is it just the fact that it's bad, or is it more so the fact that I had high expectations for something and they didn't meet those expectations? Or I thought it was going to be really great, and in fact, there was one or two or a lot of elements of it that were bad, in my opinion, and that's what really hurts worse, you know? Because you can have an album that's still really good that ends up being disappointing because it didn't live up to your level of expectation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, or if it's just like, like we talked about with bands taking different directions, like, they had a great thing going and a new album came out and it's, a album of the year for a bunch of people, but you're like,
just not for you.
It just didn't go the way I needed it to go. Yeah,
exactly, dude. That's so many bands like that. They decided to make a choice to change what they were, and then they're no longer appealing to me 100%. Okay, so for me, I have a few things that I'm going to go through and list. I will say there were several albums I was looking forward to this year a lot. And I would say the top 3 things that I was looking forward to the most are disappointing albums for me. So
that
very
happened last
bad.
year, real bad for you too.
Yes, the last few years have been pretty bad. And I think that's just because I really anticipate things a lot. Like it's not that I build things up to a level that they couldn't get to, because I was also anticipating everything in my top, there was a few surprises in my top 12, but the things that I knew about that I was looking forward to, I was anticipating quite a lot. So, it's not necessarily that I build things up so much that they can't achieve the level that I want them to, and everything is disappointing to me. But one of the albums that I was very much looking forward to, that I was saying all year was like possible number one contender, is the band Oceans of Slumber. Their whole previous album was not heavy at all. There was nothing heavy on the album at all. So basically, I like the one album in their catalog that's different from everything they've ever done, and all of their fans hate that album. That's my favorite album of theirs. I think it's phenomenal, 10 out of 10. And now they've kind of gone back to doing what they were doing before, minus some of the really cool technical stuff, the piano. There's not a lot of elements to it. If I listened to it again, I probably would like it a lot more. But when I was doing my reaction to it, which I haven't posted because it was so disappointing, when I was doing my reaction to it, I just was so disappointed. I don't even think I finished the whole album, to be honest. I think I didn't listen to the whole thing because it was a long, chunky, meaty album too. And so I was like, no. So that's definitely one that really stuck out with me. The other one that I was really looking forward to was the Pepe Deluxe album that came out this year. And Chris, you and I will talk about Pepe Deluxe in the future more because I've never heard a band that's more audio friendly than Pepe Deluxe. Cody and I did a reaction to Pepe Deluxe. I've talked to you about them before. But Cody and I did a reaction to their album from 2012 this year called Queen of the Wave. And it was the best reaction we've ever done on the channel by far. And I haven't posted it yet. I was saving it for the Christmas season. And I was actually saving it for when I posted our reaction to their album that came out this year, Comics Sonics. And I was so disappointed with Comics Sonics that I haven't bothered to edit it yet. So I will edit it and post it. But there are several songs on that album, Chris, that I would love to listen to with you and just ask you how.
What is happening?
Oh, Cody bought an 8-track radio for $10 on the Goodwill auction site.
Wow.
So that's really cool. It's an 8-track cassette, like an 8-track cassette or an 8-track, boombox thing. Cody collects boomboxes, like.
Oh.
So anyway, this album was very disappointing. Not going to get into it. The audio quality and production of it is like, again, second to none. I've never heard. There's no other band in existence like this, and I would love to listen to several songs off this album with you, Chris, because I would like to know how you think it was done, because I just have no clue how these things were made. These sounds were made, how they were put together, how it sounds as good as it does, even though it's so crazy.
That's cool.
So we'll get into we'll do more Pepe Deluxe next year, 1,000,000,000% for sure. However, their album this year, there was like 4 real songs on it, and then the rest of the stuff just kind of felt like B-sides from their previous album, which is a 10 out of 10 album. And then there was like weird instrumental stuff, and there was like 15 tracks on it, but there was really actually only 9 songs, 2 of which were instrumental. So there was actually only 7 songs. Of those songs, like 2 of them were 2 minutes long. One was an intermission track. So like it Cody said the self-titled album by the band Bleachers is an album that he really enjoyed this year. He and his wife Audrey enjoyed. So now I'm gonna put my phone on Do Not Disturb. He says it has my favorite track of the year on it, called Modern Girl. Very Springsteen sounding and inspired by Bleachers. Self-titled album by Bleachers.
Didn't know.
Never even heard of that.
Same.
Okay, so then before I get to my number 1 most disappointing album of the year, I have to just mention real quick. Joywave. The last Joywave album was number 2 of mine a few years ago, and I was really looking forward to this one. I was like hyped beforehand. I was following them. I was commenting on their stuff. The guy from Joywave was commenting back because they're a pretty small band still. They released this deluxe edition of their album that came with this fold-out thing of this room and this like cat with this laser beam, and you could take the cat off and put it on your vinyl record, and it would sit on the record looking like it was amazing. And the album came out, and it was
no, God, please, no.
I'm so sorry. And then
no.
And then the album came out, and it was just disappointing. The songs weren't as catchy. It was a little bit more experimental, and they've done that in the past on some of their albums. And that they just decided to do it again here. So it's not as catchy, not as structured the way I wanted. The songs that were bangers are some of the bangers of the year, but not up to the quality of their previous album, in my opinion. Then we have to talk about, and this is kind of getting into my albums that didn't make it, so spoiler alert for these albums that aren't on my list. One Republic, Imagine Dragons, AWOL Nation. All three of these bands I think of as the sort of like pop albums, pop bands that I enjoy and love. We've talked about them a little bit in other videos. All of these bands have been in my top 5 in previous years with releases. All of them.
Oh, sure. Yep.
And the fact that none of them are on my list at all this year, with having really none, and these bands haven't been releasing albums very much. The last AWOL Nation album was, I think, the most recent, but Imagine Dragons haven't been releasing albums as much, as often, and One Republic has been quite a while since their last. Well, it's been a little while, a couple years, but of those 3 albums, I think the One Republic album is the best of those 3, all totaled. I think the best songs are on the AWOL Nation album. But the One Republic album really taught me that you can have a 2-minute and 30-second song and have it feel like a full song.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
Kind of like
Talked
Ellie
about that a
Gold-
couple times before, too.
like the Ellie Goulding album from last year. It really taught me that if you're just literally sticking with the bare bones of a structure of a song, just like the Beatles in the years gone past, like you can have a verse, half chorus, half verse, half chorus, half bridge, half chorus, and it still feels like a whole song in 2 minutes and 20 seconds. And the entire album, I don't know if there's maybe only 2 songs over 3 minutes and 15 seconds. Every single song feels like a complete song, even though they're all so short. They're all very unique, different sounding. They're huge. They're probably the biggest band of all the things we've talked about, maybe even including Billie Eilish, maybe not, but they're pretty close, I think.
I doubt it, yeah. They're big, though. Yeah,
Yes,
for sure.
and so the fact that none of those bands made it on there means that it was disappointing. I have Nero and Justice listed because those albums were just trash, terrible trash. And so I'm just going to say that's not even disappointing. It's just bad. So I have that listed. And then, of course, the most disappointing album of the year to me, you reacted to it with me. So disappointing. I haven't bothered even trying to listen to it since we did the reaction. One of my favorite bands of all time, Nightwish. Absolutely.
Yeah.
The mix is what ruined that album. If the vocals were higher, this album would have been on my list, probably in the top 5. But because the vocals are too low to be acceptable across the entire album, it is unlistenable to me, and so therefore it is by far the most disappointing thing I heard the whole year. All right, go ahead. What are some of the disappointing albums for you?
I don't have a ton because likely because I forgot about the ones that disappointed me. I was actually just reminded of one, the Nero album. Been waiting for that Nero album for a long time. And having Satisfied be on their previous album, it's like, let's go. Let's have more of this. And it is deeply forgettable. It is just the most nothing album.
And as bad as that is, the Justice album is 1,000 times. I mean, it's offensive that it's called Justice. It's so bad.
I
So
need to
bad.
listen to some of that and see if I hate it as much as you do.
Yeah,
'Cause
you
I remember
will.
you bringing
You
that
will.
up before. I forgot. I haven't tried it yet, but
You will, trust me. You won't even make it through the first 3 songs. Okay.
and as it is tends to be a habit of mine, unintentionally so. One of my disappointing albums is also on my list,
Okay.
but
That makes sense, though. What we were talking about earlier.
it does. It's like, how do I talk about this? Do I talk about? I'll bring it up when I get to it on the
Okay, if you want to, bring it up
we'll
when you
talk
get to
about
it. Can I ask a question?
Yes.
How disappointed were you did you ever listen to it? Because we were supposed to do a reaction to this album together on the channel. And this is one of those cases where you called me the day, or you messaged me the day of, and you were like, I can't do it today. I'll push it back. Okay, I'll push it back a day. Then the next day you were like, I just can't do it today. And I was like, fine. And then I ended up doing the reaction without you. Did you ever listen to the full Power Man 5000 album from this year?
I don't know. I want to say yes, but I can't think of anything from it. So if I did, it has left me. And if I didn't, then I didn't.
Okay, I was just curious because we never talked about it after we did the reaction, and I talked about you quite a bit in the reaction, and I was hoping that you would watch it at some point, but I don't think you ever did, and it does not surprise me at all. I definitely think we could say whatever we wanted about anybody on this channel, and they would never watch it, so it's like no big deal. But like, I just was curious about that because, then we also did the Static X album together, and I never released that because I thought that was an incredibly mediocre album as well. The Power Man 5000 one, to me, I thought was pretty mediocre, but they have not been releasing banger albums. And I think I liked it more than I thought it was going to, but
they haven't put out anything particularly good since The Other Side of Nowhere, as far as I'm concerned.
Right. And I do think that I do think they have released some good albums since then, but this one I think is the most hodgepodge feeling one. If you remember, or no, you weren't there. This album, like half of it was recorded at one point, half of it was recorded at another point. So like some of the songs feel really produced and great, and the other songs feel like MP3s, like lower quality MP3s and stuff. So it's like, it's very weird. But this is the one that has like 1999 on it and some of the more electronic-y stuff.
That's what it was. We listened to some singles at one point
listened to
before it
two
came out.
singles. Yes, we listened
That's
to two
why I
singles.
remember. Yeah, that's right. Yep. So no, I haven't listened to the album. I heard those singles though. And
Okay, I just wanted to bring it up because I know Power Man 5000 is a pretty special band for both of us.
Yeah.
And
I totally forgot about that.
The mere fact that they would release an album in a year and we didn't talk about it, to me says that's pretty disappointing for both of us.
For sure, absolutely.
Did you have any other disappointing albums or?
No, not that but like you've already mentioned two that I would have said if I had remembered that they were disappointments. So
right.
We'll
and
I'm what else comes up.
I'm sure I could, if we went through, I was going to go through the list of all the albums you and I reacted to this year, but I decided it was too many that I didn't even want to bother looking through my channel to do that. So, so with that, let's move on to our honorable mentions. Sometimes I'll wait until we get halfway through this video to do this, but we're just going to do it now because this is going to tell you some of the albums that didn't make it in my top 12. However, these are the albums that I was fighting with to be in that 12 spot, that number 12 spot. And specifically, there was one album in particular. I'm going to name a couple that I had on the list and took off, thinking about stuff more and listening to things. But there was one album in particular that I just was fighting because I wanted this album to be on there more than some of the albums on the list. Because this band is special and important to me, and I bought this CD copy of this album from them, autographed with the deluxe edition, like bonus disc that came with it and all this stuff. And it was shipped to me from England, where they're from, earlier this year. I ordered it when I was in the hospital. I pre-ordered it like 3 months early and all this stuff. But the new Star Sailor album that came out this year, I really, really like it. And it is one of the craziest mixed albums I've ever heard. The first song is intentionally mixed to sound like a live song, like in a bad way. And then the more you listen to it, the more you're like, I kind of get it. And then you hear the ending of the song, which is different than the beginning, and you're like, I get it. And then the second song is totally different. And then the third song has the worst reverb on a snare drum that's ever existed in the history of humanity. And you're listening to it and you're like, this is terrible. But you get halfway through the song and you're like,
I get it.
Yeah, I get it. I do. I get it. And then the rest of the songs on the album, the second half is much more like stereotypical Star Sailor, acoustic guitar and James' amazing vocals, very minimum, like down tempo, but with lots of stuff still going on in the mix. A lot of the songs are very short. It's just verse, chorus, verse, chorus. But Star Sailor is a very important and special band to me, and I really enjoyed this album a lot, and I wanted it to be on the list so I could talk about it, but it just didn't end up there, and I do not really regret having Calandra on the list instead of Star Sailor. Those were the two that I was really debating about. Then in terms of Sorry, go ahead.
How would you compare the weird production of the Star Sailor album to Saint Anger?
Well, Saint Anger is totally different. Like, the Star Sailor album is, I would say, it's the fact that every song was approached so differently from a mixed perspective.
I see.
Whereas, like in Saint Anger feels like they recorded the same album 4 different times with completely different production, and then just stitched the best takes of the songs from each of the 4 sessions together.
I love Saint Anger.
No, I hate it. I think it's terrible. I like the songs a lot. I just wish that it was mixed. I don't care if it was bad. I just wish it was consistently whatever it was.
One or the other. Instead of, because it's inexplicable how much it changes even within each song.
Exactly, and it shouldn't. Mm-hmm. And so this album kind of does that, but each song is its own thing. So, and then it does feel like a Star Sailor album at the end of it. And they do a cool thing with it where they have these like they brought in a few like gospel singers, and so 3 of the songs that are on the album have these like big endings where they have gospel choir come in, and there's doing all these like vocal runs and things, and the song is just building, 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 and they don't fade out. They just build, 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 and it's like they're jamming and having fun, and you could see them at a live show having a lot of fun with this. You know, they're soloing, they're doing all this stuff, and the song just goes, 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 and then there's this big crescendo, and it's over. And I really like those things, but every one of those songs has just verse, chorus, and then the song changes for the second half of the song. So it's weird. So the other bands that were really fighting to make it on my list. The next one that should have made it was a band called Digimortal from Russia. They're a Russian metal band. And
Wow.
I just found out who they were last year, and they have an album from a few years ago that I think is like, if you were going to ask me like give me an album that tells me what your style of metal is, I would give you this.
Oh,
like it
okay.
is exactly what I like, but all of the lyrics are in Russian, and it's like In Flames, Soilwork, Raunchy, Metallica, Fear Factory, Mook, all put together. It's like all my favorite metal bands put together. There's some songs that are not heavy at all. There's lots of electronics. There are some songs where it's just screaming and Metallica riffs. There's thrashy stuff. There's electronic stuff. There's keyboard solos. There's guitar solos. It's amazing. It's like literally everything you could do.
Wow.
And it's really good. But this album is not as good as their last album. And it's just not as good. And this Digimortal is not a band that like everybody knows. When you search for Digimortal online, you get the Fear Factory album called Digimortal because that's Fear Factory's biggest album. But this band's been around. Yeah, this band's been around for a long time. Every one of their albums is really interesting. I downloaded I listened to their whole discography last year on Spotify. It's really interesting, but their most recent albums are just top quality metal. So that was the next band. And then Big Train had an album come out this year. It was a little disappointing. Pure Reason Revolution, I've been looking forward to their album all year. Came out the same day as Oceans of Slumber, and both of those. Pure Reason Revolution I really liked, but it just didn't make it on the list. Charlotte Wessels, the former lead singer of the band Delane, her last solo album was a double album, was really good. This one is a lot more metal, and I really like the songs. I even enjoyed the production of the album, even though it was a little bit loose in terms of the production. But it just didn't make it there. It wasn't just quite up to snuff. Then I also have listed the One Republic album because it was the closest of those 3 albums to make it on my list. And then the last album that I had on my list until the very last second, when I started debating about Star Sailor and Calandra, Tatsuro, the singer for the band Mook, released a solo album this year called True Colors. And it is just like Mook, but a little bit more like pop. And there's a song on there, track 7, is the intro to an anime, or maybe an intro or an outro to an anime that came out this year. And it is like fire, like full symphony.
So good.
It's incredible. And the rest of the album is really cool too. There's really heavy stuff. There's pop stuff. It's just totally like whatever he wanted to do. And it's really, really good, and it deserved to be on my list, but there was just stuff better than that. So those are my honorable mentions. None of those made it onto my list for this year. But
I only had one honorable mention that I forgot to bring up earlier.
Okay.
And it's what would have been in my 12 slot if I hadn't come up with a couple extra entries at the last minute.
Okay.
But the Arcane soundtrack.
Oh, interesting.
It's so good.
Okay.
And you are going to love it.
I know. I need to finish season 1, or I need to go back and restart season 1 and then watch both of them.
Yeah. The season 2 soundtrack is fire. It's so good. And I don't even know how to explain the type of music because it's all over the place, of course.
Is it like a score, or do you mean soundtrack? Like, I'm not sure.
No, it's full on soundtrack.
Okay.
Like Linkin Park is one of the songs with their new thing that they did that is everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so much stuff that's like, oh man, I don't even know how to describe it. I don't even think I could try. And I'm going to give up because I don't know. There's so much. I just hear it and I go, man, Patrick's going to love all this stuff. It's crazy.
That's awesome. I really should. Yeah.
If you don't even listen, just listen to the soundtrack before you watch the show. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
It's so good.
The song that they performed at the Game Awards was the guy from 21 Pilots, I think.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. I mean, they always do. The last song had Imagine Dragons featuring that rapper dude. That Anthem song or whatever it was called. That was the intro for season 1.
It's the same intro, yeah.
Oh,
But yeah.
I thought they had a new intro this season, and it was that song with 21 Pilots.
Oh no, that 21 Pilot song is just in one of the episodes.
Oh, okay. See, I thought that was the new intro for this year, which is why they did it. But the intro song for Arcane, the show, is Imagine Dragons.
Yep, still
And
same song.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. All right. Okay, so that means we are on to our list, and we are going to start this time with you first, Chris.
All right, number 6. Probably yes, number 6.
Yes.
Okay, so number 6. I have a feeling that there is a very large, there's a whole thing happening with this band and this album, socially speaking, that I am not aware of.
Okay.
But it's Popular Monster by Falling in Reverse.
Okay.
And it is 11 songs, 37 minutes, and they have 7.9 million plays per month. So they are definitely plenty popular.
Yes, they're a huge
But-
band.
Yeah,
I don't think I've heard any one of their songs ever, but I've definitely been aware of them.
You might. I think you'd probably like it more than hate it.
Okay.
Vocally, I think it strays into some territory that you're not a huge fan of.
Yeah.
But
Wait, is that Ronnie Radke?
Yes.
Falling? See, I've heard a lot more about Ronnie Radke this year than I have Falling in Reverse.
right? Exactly,
Okay.
and I think
Okay.
that that's a big part of why. Because
Zombified is on this album.
Yeah.
Sorry, I know
And-
that song because that was. I'm so sorry, Chris. I know that song because it's the intro song for a wrestler. So that's a song that came out like 2 years ago. So that's interesting.
Interesting. Yeah.
Okay, go
Well,
ahead.
and that might be part. So, like I said, I think there's a whole pile of drama set up and happening around this album because of some of the stuff that the songs are about,
Okay.
and that the cover of the album is Ronnie Radke's mugshot,
Right? Yeah, I just know.
and then whatever you seem to know about him,
Yeah.
that separate from the band. But I don't know anything about any of that. So, all I know is that this is the heaviness of this album is insane.
Okay.
And they have one song called "Watch the World Burn," has the most unbelievable savage breakdown ever.
Okay,
I
okay.
can't. It's crazy. This whole album is 11 out of 10 heavy. It's heavy. It's fast. It's very, very upset. And this is their first album since 2017, Coming Home, which is one of my favorite albums of that year. Fantastic album.
Interesting.
And so something's been going on with them that they took so long to put this out.
Okay.
And I just don't know what any of it is, but
Yeah.
it's
Okay.
killer.
Yeah, I don't know that much about him. I just know Ronnie Radke is definitely like a polarizing dude, and he has a lot of hot takes. And I don't know if it had to do with. I think it has to do with treating people in the music industry. I think he stands up for musicians and stuff, but sometimes craps on the tour people and stuff or fans and stuff. But that's just a very basic. I don't understand it at all. I think that's part. But he's also just a very polarizing guy, and he does a lot of stuff online. He has I think he live streams every day. Him writing music and playing video games and doing all this stuff. He is a very prominent person online. And
really know
he's,
any of that,
yeah, he's very, very, And the reason I even know some of that stuff is because I follow Tank the Tech's metal channel where he talks about, he used to do reactions. He's one of the channels that inspired me to start my reaction channel. But nowadays he is actually on tour. He is a tour manager for certain bands, and he also plays bass, and he was a bass tech for many years, and he talks about the technical side of touring and stuff, which I think is somewhat interesting. And he talks about controversies in the music industry that have to do with live touring stuff. So when,
okay.
I love his videos. He talks about when festivals go wrong and stuff. He contacts the people that worked at the festival and interviews people and stuff. It's really great. He knows people in every band on every record label because he's just been around for a while, and he has all these connections. And I've heard him talk about Ronnie Radke a lot and his opinions on certain things. And I don't really click on those videos and watch them too intently because I don't really know that much about him, but I know he does talk about it quite a bit.
He seems like the kind of guy that could get himself into trouble a lot.
Yeah, and it's so funny too because I remember us talking about this probably back in 2017 when they released that album, but I remember being surprised you liked them because to me, not having heard a Falling in Reverse song that I really ever paid attention to, like I've heard that Zombified song a little bit, but I always think of them as like a somewhat heavier version of like My Chemical Romance or something, like some kind of like a Treyu or something like that. But apparently
they fit into that.
From what you've said though, like I don't consider any of those bands being heavy at all. And you're talking about like some of the most heaviest breakdowns ever. And I'm like, oh,
well,
okay.
Their heaviness has gone up considerably since their last album. Because I think that's a very reasonable place to put them with.
Okay.
That
or like
type
Bullet for
yeah.
My Valentine or stuff like that.
Absolutely, yeah. Very much in that vein. And now this is like, remember when Bullet for My Valentine put out that Knives song or whatever?
I don't know anything about Bullet for My Valentine. I just know you've talked about
well, they were very much in that vein that you were talking about a little bit
Yeah.
ago. And then they had like this big period of, they had like big pause. And then they put out their like, Bullet for My Valentine is back. And they had this song called Knives. And it was so savagely heavy. It was like, holy shit. How is this like, these guys have been around forever. How do they even have the energy, the ability to do something like this? It was crazy how heavy that song was. And I didn't get to hear anything else from that album to see what happened with it. But this is kind of like that, where it's like Watch the World Burn came out, and it's like, okay, the rapping is crazy fast. Really good stuff. Man, we'll put a little asterisk next to that says, I never listen to rap. So it might not be that fast, but I find it to be impressive.
Sure.
And then the whole second half is just like, Drop City, man. It's huge. You should listen to it.
I need to. Well, you can show me, pick one of the songs and show me when we do our other video for this.
We'll do that.
Okay, well, that's really interesting. I'm surprised that's on you. You've surprised me a little bit. I mean, obviously this year, Chris, so that's good.
I had an interesting thought a little bit ago while we were talking about the honorable mentions too. Like, because of how few albums I have to choose from, because I was thinking about how silly it feels to have a disappointing album be on my list. And I feel like it's coming a little bit more from a place of like, I had 14 albums to choose from for my top 12. And so this is like, 12 is like, this is the worst album I heard all year versus of everything that I had.
Right.
You know, these are the top 12. It's just like, these are my 12 albums. I don't know. It's kind of tricky to think about it, but it's like, the disappointing album that's still on the list is like, I would have expected this album to be here, and it's only here, instead of like
1,000%
distance somewhere.
Yeah, and don't get caught up on the disappointing thing. I was just saying that like an album can be disappointing to you and still be in your top 5, you know, because it just didn't reach the level of expectation you had. So, million percent. Okay, so that means we're up to my number 6.
Yes, indeed.
So my number 6 is, in fact, Ohio Players by the Black Keys. This version of the album is 14 songs, 44 minutes. The Trophy Edition, which is vinyl and online only, 18 songs, 55 minutes. The Deluxe Amazon exclusive the Deluxe Amazon exclusive Trophy Edition is 19 songs, 58 minutes. And so we are going to say that the version of the album that I am including at number 6 on my list is the Trophy Edition Amazon exclusive version. Okay, so 19 songs, 58 minutes. Yesterday, Chris and I did a reaction to the 5 bonus songs because I was sitting here, I had this album at number 6 on my list, and I was like, I haven't even heard these 5 bonus songs. Maybe they're so great they'll bump it up, or they're so terrible they'll bump it down. And we listened to them, and they were kind of like, okay, whatever. There was one song that was fantastic, one song that was pretty good, and then 3 that were kind of like meh. And so, yeah. Black Keys have 8.7 million monthly listeners. So
nice
I
high
was
number.
Yeah, very high. I was surprised that what was Billie Eilish? Do you remember? Was it
105 million?
105 million?
Yep.
That is so stupid. To think that she's
crazy?
that much more popular than the Black Keys, but I guess she's one of the
number 5, I think either number 5 or number 3 highest on earth.
Yeah, I would believe that for sure. I mean, definitely Taylor Swift is above her, and maybe Beyonce, I guess. I don't even know, but
Yeah.
Taylor Swift is definitely number one, and we don't even. Do you want to look up how many monthly listeners Taylor Swift has?
I might as well see if they
Yeah, do
even.
it. I'm gonna puke. It's gonna be like 750 million people monthly listens.
94.6 million.
Less than
So Billie
Billie
Eilish.
Eilish.
Yep. Eilish is higher.
Good job. Eat her
I'm
lunch.
excited about that.
Although you know what, didn't Taylor Swift hate Spotify and not have all of her catalog on Spotify and all that junk?
Could be.
I think probably Spotify is not where Taylor Swift has the biggest following.
Yeah. It's probably TaylorSwiftStreamer.com.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah. Oh God, that's Taylor Swift makes me so mad. Kind of. She's great, but not as great as she is. Okay.
That's
Anyway,
dangerous territory.
I know. Whatever. I like Taylor Swift. She has songs that make me cry when I listen to them, but she ain't. She does not. No, she's not. Anyway. So
The
Black
restraint,
Keys,
I can hear it.
Black Keys, Ohio Players. The production on this is good. It's back to the way it should be for the Black Keys. Their previous album, Dropout Boogie, I loved the songs, but there was no high end on the CD version that I had, and so it didn't even make it on my list that year. It was one of the most disappointing albums of that year. There's still elements of that lower or that missing high frequency on this album, but it's mainly in the vocals. I feel like the vocals on some of the songs don't necessarily match the high fidelity quality of the music and the instrumentation, but that's kind of a Black Keys thing. So I give it a pass for that. And then the music is great. And I was talking to you about this yesterday. One of the main reasons, the way they approach this album, and the reason it's different than every one of their other albums is this album was specifically meant to be a collaborative album. A lot of the songs on the album feature Beck Hansen, the hey, now saw that girl. Hey.
Why do you keep doing that?
Because that's the, or so I'm a loser, baby. So why don't
I know, but we
kill
did talked about Beck last night, and you insisted on singing those two songs.
This is a different video.
Me
Chris,
knowing
that
exactly who
people are probably going to. I'm talking to the people, Chris, not to you.
That's fair. That's fair.
So anyway, plus I think it's funny to go, hey, I saw that
Yes, you do.
girl.
Number one, most monthly listeners on Spotify. Who do you think it is?
Bad Bunny.
No. It's Bruno Mars with 139 million.
I'm trying to decide if that makes me upset or not. I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I'm happy
it's so
that
far
it's
away.
not Taylor. I'm happy it's not Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
You know that, so that makes me happy. Bruno Mars hasn't released anything worthwhile since his first album at all, other than that Uptown Funk song, which is not a Bruno Mars song. Okay, it's not on a Bruno Mars album. So it's not.
Whose album is it on?
It's on some some electronic musician. It's that song is featuring Bruno Mars.
That's funny.
Now maybe Bruno Mars bought the rights to it and all that stuff, but yeah, when's the last time Bruno Mars was relevant? That's weird. But anyway,
Right now.
you know what? Great point. You know, you've got the tangible evidence right in front of you, million percent. What people should be listening to, though, is the Black Keys and Ohio Players. The album's fantastic. Of course, they're from Ohio. I just want to point that out. Ohio Players, which I didn't know this, but when we were doing the reaction, Cody told me that the Ohio Players was actually a band back in like the 60s and the early 70s.
Okay.
And Dan Auerbach is fans of them. And the Black Keys the last few years have really been making music inspired by the music of the late 70s. Whereas before they were kind of making garage punky blues music that was their own kind of thing, inspired by, maybe 70s and early 80s sort of like punk music in terms of the way it sounds. But they're now much more, you can have a flute on one song for a measure if you want. You can have whatever. And it's very much Motown-y kind of sounding, that like the Wrecking Crew type of vibe, which is like, again, late 60s into the 70s, late 80s with the close mic'd drums and all that stuff. So This album sounds great. All the songs on it are really cool. There's 2 songs that feature rappers. I really enjoy that. Both songs are kind of interesting, though, in that the first half of the song is different than the second half. at some point the song just stops and becomes a different song, and then there's a rapper on it, and then Dan sings a little bit in the background with the rapper. But it's still cool. The production is fantastic on every one of the original album songs. It's a little questionable on the bonus songs, but we're not here to talk about the bonus songs really. The slower songs are really nice. All the guest artists are fantastic. It really feels like a culmination of everything that Dan has been doing over the last few years. He's got that Arcs project, which is a little bit more collaborative and feels kind of more like this album really than some of the other Black Keys stuff. They both, Dan and Pat Carney, produce music for other people. It all sounds fantastic. Dan's record label Easy Eye Sound released several albums this year that I had people in comments say you need to listen to these albums. Dan just goes out into the world and finds these musicians on the street and brings them in and makes these like incredible albums with him. So it's really cool what he's doing. And he finds these people who are just like out touring, and then he brings them in and makes the whole album out of it. And then it's incredible what Dan's doing. So I really appreciate that. But yeah, this is Black Keys. This is what you expect. Black Keys have had #1 slots on my lists in the past. So they deserve to be here because this is a return to form for them, in my opinion. And yeah, I'm excited to see what their next album sounds like. I'm assuming it's going to be very different from this because they worked on this album over quite a long period of time and actually recorded Dropout Boogie while they were recording this album. And then before that, they did that Delta Cream album that was the live in studio old Delta Blues album, which is so different from anything they ever did before. But I wouldn't be surprised if their next album is a little bit heavier, a little bit more raw, because this is so produced. I think they try to, change things up. Maybe there will never be another Black Keys album. I don't know. They've been kind of hinting at the fact that they hate each other and stuff, but that's kind of always been a joke in the Black Keys fandom. So it's like, I don't think so. I think that they just get together every few years, make an album, and then that's what it was. And that's why this album was special, because they spent a few years actually making it collaboratively with a bunch of different artists. So that's my number 6, Ohio Players by the Black Keys.
Wonderful. Now we are into 5.
Yes.
Top 5.
Yes, top 5.
And
Ding,
my
ding, ding,
number
ding,
5
ding, ding,
entry that I expect to have the least to say about. Somebody who ends up on my list pretty much every year because he puts out music and it just keeps being good. Despite...
Royksop?
No, sir.
Not Royksop. What's that other guy you like, that electronic musician?
You're close. You're getting there.
Royce? No. Okay,
I don't think you're
ahead.
going to get it.
Yeah,
I look forward to
probably
figuring it out. It is unlike Pluto.
Oh, you know what? You've talked about him before, yeah.
Yeah, he just he puts out a lot of music. Like I went to Spotify earlier to just get the info off of this for this list, and I was like, oh, look, another album from him. He has another album called he has an album series called Pluto Tapes, which I think are mostly like a little bit more of like a B-side collection or just songs that he wrote that didn't make it onto anything in particular, onto an album or whatever. And so he got out. Pluto Tapes 4 is out. I haven't heard a thing from that, but this is his actual like normal album release from this year called Ghost Gardens. It's 15 songs, 47 minutes, and very surprisingly up to 2 million plays per month, which is really great.
Awesome.
He was certainly not anywhere near that when I started listening to him. But I don't know. Everything that he does pretty much sounds like what he does, and you can sort of like hear a certain progression, especially his early stuff. Like his production wasn't super great. Like he had a lot of like some pretty obvious side chaining and some other stuff. And a friend of mine actually interviewed him on a different podcast, and I heard a lot about just like how he got started in music and just like what the Pluto Tapes are and the types of stuff that he wanted to try and the fact that he was still getting still getting better at all of this. And so it's been interesting to listen to the progression of his music and how much better it has gotten over time, even since that interview. And I don't even really know how to describe what his music sounds like or what he sounds like. He doesn't really hit me as I hear what he does, and I don't think like, oh, that's a little bit of this, that's a little bit of this, which I do a lot. It's pretty common. So I think that's one of the things that is I find to be unique about him is that his music doesn't necessarily remind me of something else.
Okay.
Just even though it's not like hyper weird, it just doesn't ring any bells. But it's also like I don't think it's one of those. He's also one of those artists where it's like I don't expect to ever say my favorite song at any point in time is an Unlike Pluto song. Like it's just, or it'll never be my favorite song, might never be my favorite album, but it's just consistently good. Like he just has picked a niche of music, and it's like 70-30 electronic and rock, I guess. And he's got that really nice like mid-range kind of voice where it's just like, just keep making this thing that's relatively the same or similar down through the album, and it'll always be good and listenable without being boring. And it is, I mean, it's a little bit inoffensive in the sense that like you could play this in a group and you probably would never have anybody complain about it.
Sure. While you were talking about that, it kind of reminded me a little bit of another artist that's similar to that, but we do think kind of negatively about the output. The Annex.
Cool. There's a lot of I was actually thinking about that as I said that
because he released an album.
A lot of parallels.
Guess what? He released an album this year too.
I bet he did. I bet he did. Mm-hmm. And yeah, the Annex is a really good parallel. And I don't know. And I think maybe just the ultimate difference is like Pluto, his name is Armin, I think. I don't know, maybe just because I heard his interview and he's like a real person who's a nice guy. Mm-hmm. And I don't dislike the Annex. Like honestly, it's a really similar type of music too. Like they could go on the same playlist together easy. Mm. But it's the same kind of thing where it's like, here's a guy who cannot stop making music, and it's all very similar to itself, and it's never really bad, but it's never going to be the thing that grabs you for the year. I think that there's a lot of parallels between it and the Annex for sure. Yeah.
I was curious if you had listened to the Annex album for this year. I started listening to it. I might have. Yeah, I started listening to it, and I got halfway through, and I was just like, I never went back to it. I didn't intentionally stop. I just was like, I didn't go back to it, but I haven't enjoyed one of his albums in many years. I enjoy it. It hasn't stuck out to me in many years. So
right, it's like to say that you haven't enjoyed many of his albums or any of his albums in a while is like, well, it's because he's only got one album. It just keeps getting new songs.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. All right. So now we're on to my number 5. Right?
Yep.
Wait, we did your 6, my 6, your 5, my 5.
Right.
So we don't. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. My 5 is, in fact, Melodies of Atonement by the band Leprous. And I'm going to sneeze. So, my number 6...
Keep that in. That stays.
So my number 6 is Melodies of Atonement by Leprous. So this is a band that I discovered a few years ago, and their previous album, Aphelion, I think was my number 4 or 5 for the year that came out. I think it was 2 years ago, maybe 3. But last year, the singer, Einar Solberg, released his solo album, and I really liked what he was doing, but it wasn't really my thing. It was bordering on being a little bit more classical music, more prog, than what I enjoyed about Leprous's album, Aphelion. And so this album, Melodies of Atonement, it is 10 songs, 52 minutes. So these songs are pretty hefty.
Yeah, that's beefcake.
Now they are a big band in the stratosphere, in the sphere that they exist in, but only 220,000 monthly listeners. So not enormous. They're from Norway.
Hey, what happened?
They are considered a prog metal band. You could listen to some of their songs and not know that they were a metal band at all, which is interesting, and that's kind of one of the things I like about them. When I would talk about their previous album, the thing that really struck me and really, to me, seemed very unique and still does, and it holds true on this album as well, is the structuring of their songs. every one of their songs has basically the same structure, but I don't mean that in a negative way. Every one of their songs starts with some sort of a minimalistic element, generally either a guitar part or a piano part or some sort of a synth pad. So something that's just very simple and droning and continuing. And then their singer, who has an amazing voice that's unlike any other vocalist I've heard, starts singing. And then throughout the song, it kind of builds. There's more elements added. The first chorus always happens with nothing really behind it. And then the second verse is when the drums and the bass come in and there's a bit more of a rhythm to it. And then the songs are very long. Each section of the song is very long. And then when the second chorus comes in, that's when everything just explodes. Sometimes there's a little bridge before it or after it. And then the song is basically over after that. So their songs are structured verse, chorus, and then it's over essentially. However,
that was legitness. Yeah, it was.
Excuse me. Unlike a One Republic song that has that same structure that's 2 minutes and 10 seconds long, this is a 5.5 minute long song with that same structure. So there's the songs all feel like they have more than enough time to build. They're very slow. Lots of this reminds me of Muse a lot. The way that Muse just seems to like drag on sometimes when I'm listening to him. I'm like, just get to the part we're waiting for where they're going da 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 da. Instead, he's just going. You know, it's like, okay, we get it. You like to sing slowly, and that's great. But so there's a lot of that on this, but the production is just the low frequencies are as low as they go. The tip-toppy, high, crunchy frequencies are as high as they go. And, it is just mouth-wateringly dynamic. When the guitars come in, they explode you. I mean, you just explode. And it's not because they're heavy. It's because they're dynamic. You know, at no point, there is screaming there's heavy vocals on one song on this album. And I've heard their two previous albums, and I did not know that he had the ability to scream. So I've heard 3 full albums of theirs now, and I've only ever heard him scream once for like 10 seconds on the bridge of one of the songs on this album. And I think that's kind of a callback to their earlier stuff. And some of the sounds that they use on this album are just like, track 3 has this like sample that starts the song, and it sounds like a sonar, right? Like a ping, like a sonar ping.
Sure.
But it's like edited and mixed and pitched to be like an actual little melody, and it's like
cool. That's cool.
And that part like repeats through the whole song. It goes away and comes back every now and then, but like when it comes back, it's just like the whole thing builds and you're feeling it and you're just like, and then everything just lets bloom, and in the background you just hear this and then the drums come in and they're all this like and the bass is just like doing this thing, and it's just phenomenal. One of the songs, the main, like every song has like a core element that's totally unique to that song that is sort of like the thing that the rest of the song builds off of, if that makes sense. Like the big
I mean, that's Infected Mushroom does similar stuff.
Yes, however, I would never compare these guys to Infected Mushroom.
For sure.
But I know what you mean like that, like the unique element. Their big single that they released for this album, the cool part is the guitar does this like hip hop thing that almost seems like a scratching thing. It's like this like on the guitar, and like it's I know it's so weird to whatever. That doesn't tell you anything, but like it's what it is it's doing what it's doing as perfectly as humanly possible. It sounds as good as it can. It's a long album. There's one song that has an upright bass. The bass player's playing upright bass, and the groove is just this most infectious little groove thing, and it's just grooving, and over the top of it, he sings these long, lush melodies, and then all these crazy vocal harmonies, and I mean, this is one of the bands that people react to who are vocal coaches and stuff, because people listen to him sing, and he has this like falsetto high range that he goes to that it's like master class, like singing like charismatic voice, can't believe it, you know what I mean, type of stuff. And so that's Leprous. this band is like at the height of themselves right now, and I know a lot of people like their earlier stuff a lot more, but like this band is doing something special, and I hope that other bands listen to this band and do this type of stuff more. So that's my number 5, Melodies of Atonement by Leprous.
Cool. I started up track 3, and I can hear that that sort of echo. That's pretty cool. All right, number 4. Now, number 4 doubles as one of my disappointing albums.
Okay.
It is Carnal by Nothing More.
If it doesn't hurt at all, then it doesn't mean a thing. Just holding on to hope is a different kind.
Nothing More. Can do no wrong. Flawless band.
Okay.
They have 3 albums before this that are all just basically perfect albums. No complaints on any of the tracks. And this album feels a little weird. It has a handful of guest vocals, and I don't know, there's just something about it that makes it feel kind of rushed and almost like it was like a B-side. Like, it's just a really strange album that doesn't feel like theirs.
Okay.
And it's kind of detached from itself. Like, the other albums are so good at feeling cohesive.
Okay.
Like, each song into the next song, like, they're really great little packages. And this one it echoes a lot of the complaints that I had about the newest Melanie Martinez album.
Okay.
Because all of her, both of her 2 first albums are so meticulously structured as these concept albums, and then her new one is also supposed to maybe be that, but I don't understand, because she basically is like, here's this character that I used to be who is now dead, and now I have arisen and I'm this really strange moth creature with 4 eyes, and so it's like this rebirth thing, but then the songs aren't really different enough to like make sense for a rebirth idea, and then they also they don't have the cohesion of a concept, so they're kind of just all over the place. And this has a little bit of that same feeling, where it's like, I kept, like, if any of the previous Nothing More albums are just like the kind where it's like, I'm going to go back and listen to that again.
Right.
Go back and listen to that again. And I haven't found anything like the David Draymond album, or the David Draymond song, Angel song that's on here.
Right.
It's featuring David Draymond. Fantastic. Really interesting. Like, a totally different sound from them. It's almost got like a Middle Eastern vibe to it in a way.
Okay.
Super cool. And when I heard that, I was like, this song is rad. This album might be huge on my list, like way up at the top. But everything else is like, what are any of these songs? I go down the list and I'm like, I don't know what any of these sound like. These are all, I mean, arguably, admittedly, it's been a little while since I've listened to it, but nothing grabbed me. Nothing really held on to me to keep me in this album. 15 songs, 45 minutes, 2 million monthly plays. They're
Big band.
Big band. But yeah, still number 4, because it's a really solid album. Like, it still sounds like Nothing More. They haven't lost their way or anything, I guess, but it just is a little bit, it feels a bit wayward compared to their previous work.
Okay, that's interesting. You talked to me about Nothing More before, and I think even when we were doing the music room, one of their albums was very high on your list, if not your number 1 for that year.
Yeah.
But I know I talked to you a couple weeks ago, and I said I still needed to listen to this, and I just never did. I never got around to listening to it. I heard on the radio, or maybe I saw a music video or something somehow, of the song you were talking about with David Draymond. And I remember thinking that it was very strange, because I thought the Nothing More song sounded so much like Disturbed. I was like, if this is what Chris has been talking about the whole time, like, why didn't he just like Disturbed, But then I realized I didn't know at the time that song was featuring David Draymond. So I was like, oh.
Yeah.
And so, and then you said, listen to the rest of it, and I just never did. Never listened to it. So.
At least that makes 2 of us. Like,
well,
you send me stuff I never listen to all the time, so at the very least, it goes both ways.
Yeah, I mean, I had this. Yeah, it definitely does. Because you tell me to listen to stuff all the time. You send me stuff, you send me individual songs all the time, and I'll click on it and see that it's an individual song, and I'll be like, I don't want to listen to an individual song, like if you send me something and I click on it and I go to Spotify and it's like the only song that artist has ever released, I'm like, I don't want to hear this.
That's fair.
But wait until
I usually will hear it and go, Patrick would love this, and send it to you, and then I leave it up to you to care about the album.
For sure, million percent. Okay, on to my number 4 then. My number 4, this is an album that I have waited to listen to. I found it very late in the game, and I sat down last night and I was like, I'm going to listen to this entire thing. Chris, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. We have tried to do a reaction to this for the last 2 days in a row. And yes, this album made it to my number 4. I was honestly listening to this the entire time thinking, could this be number 1? And my answer was yes, this could be number 1. So this is a very strange thing, people.
I also listened to this album this morning while I was going through trying to find stuff to add to the list. And by the time I got what's this?
While you're thinking and looking, we are talking about the album Paladins and Tyrants by an artist named Robin Shank.
Yeah.
Paladins. Did I say that wrong? Paladins?
You said Paladins.
Paladins? Paladins.
Yeah.
Sorry, Paladins and Tyrants by Robin Shank.
Everyone we ever knew, the dead are a cadmium blue. We walk away. We walk away. Everyone we ever knew, the dead are a cadmium blue. We walk away.
Yes, by the time I got to track 6 or 7, I was like, nah, never mind.
Wow. That is shocking to me because I don't believe that this album is as good as it is. Like, I really honestly don't. I am thinking that there's some trick here. Like, he bought the songs from some, like, he bought the songs from some other, like, some trailer, some company that makes trailer music and stuff, and then inserted his just vocals over the top of it or something. Because I'm like, this can't be as good as it is, and it is. It's as good as it is.
It's like when people sell their login for World of Warcraft. They've got like a level 300 character or whatever, and they're like, they just sell it to somebody else, and then they're like, now I have it. He just bought someone else's music.
Well, that happens all the time. Rap music is basically just people picking out tracks they like and then licensing them for a while. So that's how rap music works. But this has nothing to do with that. This is again Paladins and Tyrants by Robin Shank. 12 songs at 42 minutes, and this guy has 1,168 monthly listeners. This dude is a crime. This dude is a no one. I looked up his YouTube page today. I looked up his Instagram page has, I think, 70 followers, maybe, or 200 maybe. His X account or something has like 5.
Twitter,
whatever. His YouTube page has 400 subscribers. Wow, and he has had it for a long time. He posted a bunch of videos back in 2013 when he was in college. And they are college videos. They are people just messing around in college. Like, he has videos on there that, like he made a fake movie trailer for a thing that he was doing as a project for school. He has one of the videos he has on there. So this guy, Robin Shank, he's from Brno. Excuse me, I'm having problems coughing, everybody. I'm so sorry. He's from Brno, Czech Republic. I believe he went to school in Prague, Czechoslovakia. It's Czech Republic, but here where I live in the middle of the Bohemian Alps in Nebraska, Czech Republic doesn't exist. We all come from Czechoslovakia. That's what we still refer to it as. So Czechoslovakia. I live in Prague, Nebraska. This dude went to college in Praha, Czech Republic. As far as I know, this is just a dude like you or me making music.
This seems like some dude who spent an outrageous amount of time getting very good at making music and then decided to finally start making it public.
Yes, and also just like That's all it is. Like he has 2 music videos on, or he has 1 music video on his channel that's really well made. He has a instrumental, or he has a video, like a, what do they call it, where you just read the lyrics. What's it called? A lyric video. A lyric video
yeah.
for one of the songs on the album. But when I tell you that this is like literally some of the like, this is orchestral pop music. And maybe this is like, maybe there's a lot of music like this out in the world and I just am not aware of it. But to me, this is like orchestra. Like there are moments of like a soft acoustic guitar on this album. His voice is so unique. It's low. It can be gravelly. He can get more intense with it. There's rock guitars. There's crazy guitar solo, which he has the first video he has on his YouTube channel is him playing electric guitar, playing some like crazy Bach or Strauss thing where he's like doing some weird thing. So like the dude is a great musician. His voice is awesome. The audio quality of this album could not be any higher, which is one of the, which I'm like, how did he make this? I mean, it's all, I assume it's all fake. Like maybe he has like violins and stuff. There are songs where it feels like there's a choir behind him and it sure sounds like they're saying the words that he's saying. Maybe not necessarily like a big choir, but at least like 4 or 5 people recorded a couple times doing vocal harmonies. I'm sure he's doing a lot of vocal harmonies himself, but like every song is unique. Every song is different. Every song feels super epic. Every song could be in a trailer for a epic movie. Everything is recorded perfect. The acoustic guitar is amazing. It sounds great. There's glockenspiel. There's all sorts of things. The drums sound fantastic. I believe he is a drummer as well.
Got him!
He went to like a renowned music school, and so maybe he has friends that helped him with some certain aspects of it. Like that's why I said like it doesn't make sense to me that this is as good as it sounds. Like
and it sounds incredible, and it's not a bad album. I just by the time I got most of the way through it, I decided it wasn't going to make it onto my list, but it doesn't mean it's bad.
Right. And for me, I have an affinity, like I have this thing inside me where like if there's an orchestra playing with something, it just really brings it up a lot notches and levels for me.
Yeah.
And that the cinematic aspect of this album has only ever been matched by one other group that I've ever heard before named Globus, and they have what is in my opinion the second greatest album I've ever heard. Other than my Kaiser's Orchestra album, which is Kaiser's Orchestra featuring a full orchestra. So like the 2 greatest albums I've ever heard are like epic orchestral rock albums.
Got him!
This is literally right there with those. Like I'm not saying it's the 3rd greatest album I've ever heard, but honestly, like there are so many influences on this. There are so many things you can listen to and be like, this sounds like this sounds like this. It reminds me of one of my favorite bands, Hertz, from England. They have this very like close mic'd, like very high quality, audio quality way of writing songs and music. And this guy kind of sounds like their singer. There's a lot of like, you can hear like, it's kind of like that Calandra album I started these videos with. You can hear like the rustling of pages and clothing and like little clicks and taps and people walking and stuff. Like you can just hear the room and the sound, but everything is so professional and literally perfect. And like, there's no reason this album should sound as good as it does. And other albums I've heard this year sound as bad as they do compared to this. Right. No reason.
FBI, open up!
If this is what it appears to be, and this is just a dude like us, younger than us, who's just made this album, this like masterpiece of an album, then like there is no excuse for any other band on the planet to not sound phenomenal. It's disgusting to me how great this sounds. If you listen to anything we talk about in any of these videos, go watch this. Go listen to this album. Go follow this guy. If he makes another album and keeps going, I don't know if we're just like right at the tip of this iceberg before he explodes, because he deserves it and should. But or if he'll just fade into obscurity now, or I'm wrong and this is like a fake album. That's the only thing I can think of. that like either we're here at the beginning of this like masterpiece thing being started, or this is like fake and I was hoodwinked into
Oh, we've
believing.
reached the end of the music industry.
Well, like
as
I just
a place where people
there's no
exist.
way this can be. This is like dream scenario. Like finding this dude in this country far away who like made the greatest album of all time and nobody knows about it. What the heck? You know,
Yeah.
it's disgusting. Like, please go look this guy up. I wanted to do a reaction. I wanted Chris and I to do a reaction to this entire album so that he could see our reaction. It would be the best, as far as I can tell, us doing a reaction to him would be the biggest promotional thing he's ever had. And maybe I'm wrong, and in Czech Republic, there's like this other app that they use, and he's got millions of followers there. I don't even think there's millions of people in the Czech Republic. Hey, Google, what's the population of the Czech Republic?
In 2023, the population of the Czech Republic was 10,873,000.
10 million. 10 million people in the Czech Republic. Every one of them should know who this guy is.
Yeah.
It's absolutely bonkers to me. I don't understand this. I don't know. I don't think that this is really a thing. Every song is so good. And the last song, the only negative it's a perfect album. The only thing I could say negative about it is the final song fades out. However, what it is, let me try to see if I can find the lyrics. The last song on the album is called Kids from the Eastern Bloc Epilogue. Here are the lyrics to the last song, the way it starts. I'm sorry about the simple words I used. I'm sorry if my accent made you confused. I'm sorry if you doubt my true intentions and if my music bores you for lack of invention. I'm sorry, but I tried to put my blood and soul in it. I tried to put my worlds and dreams in it. I tried to master the art of opening my heart. It seemed like a pretty good start. It's like he's apologizing at the beginning of the song if you don't like the album, which is so weird and interesting and kind of seems a little juvenile, but like the dude is juvenile, essentially, but like it's phenomenal. The rest of the song is like a somewhat normal song, and it kind of just goes and it builds into this thing, and it's all about, but we're still here, we're still the people we are, we're from the poor side of town, blah, blah, blah. And it's kind of this big choral part, and it just repeats a bunch, and then that fades out. So it's like I kind of even can almost forgive the fade out. But like every song feels so unique, and the lyrics are the vocal melodies, you could sing along with every song. Every part of this is perfect. It sounds perfect. It's a perfect album. I can't even with this. Like really
take that 1 through 3. Like
I really think that there's that some I think something is cheating. Something is happening here. Like it's fake somehow. I don't understand how. Maybe it's AI. Maybe he created this all using AI.
Well, that's what I was
But, like,
saying. It's
something-
we either stumbled onto, or I guess you did, stumbled onto the one super rare, like the music version of the car that there are only 5 left of that some old lady had in the shed and she didn't realize what it was, kind of a situation. Or
Yes.
the music industry no longer
Which
needs
never
people.
happens.
Right.
Yeah, it's right. I didn't know that's what you meant, but 100%. Like,
Yeah.
yes, but I just if this is what it appears to be, it's disgustingly fantastic. If Robin Shank ever sees this video, like, contact.
We should still do. I mean, we
We'll
could still do a
interview you.
reaction to it, and we could talk about it.
Oh,
Like,
we're
I wouldn't
going. I
mind
think we're
giving
going
this
to.
a prop.
I just
I wouldn't mind giving this album a proper listen and talk, because that'll, like I said earlier, so often things I don't think I liked, by the time we got to the end of a reaction, it changed my mind on it. So
yeah, and if you were listening to it while if you weren't listening with headphones, I feel first of all that's a crime because this album is just headphone worthy for sure.
yeah,
So just like we'll do more about this artist in the future, but like amazing, incredible, and if this is fake. If this is fake, I wasted one of my slots here on this, and I'll
And
be
that's
really
the
mad
real
in the future.
crime.
But I don't want that to be the case. Like I want this guy to be legit. So
even though I know that was kind of a joke, like how.
all right, so we just had a bit of a technical snafu. We can be done talking about Robin Shank, and we will move on to Chris's number 3.
Well, my number 3, I believe
did-
is your number 10.
Oh, okay.
Yes, you were right, and the Self-Deception album "Destroy the Art" made it all the way up to number 3.
Wow.
I went and gave it a listen. I was like, man, I was really put off. I know that so you described it in a way that you were afraid was going to put me off. And I was like, no, that's nonsense. Describe it however you want. And then later I was like, I think my biggest problem is how put off I am by the way you described it.
I know that was my biggest problem with it too, because I agree the way I put it kind of ruined it for me.
But then I just kept listening to it. And I was like, this is just like that Set It Off album from last year or 2 years ago. There's so much variety here. There's so much energy, and it's just fantastic. It's so good.
I mean, every song is basically perfect.
Yep, it's so much fun, and I love it.
So what are we talking about?
We're talking about "Destroy the Art" by Self-Deception. It's got 10 songs, 32 minutes long, and they have 738,000 monthly listeners. So they are,
which I was
popular than I
surprised.
expected.
Is that how much they had when we were looking them up the first time?
I have no
when we
idea.
were doing that video? Because I thought I remembered them being like less popular than that, but maybe not.
It's only
that's
been a
quite
couple of
popular.
months. So, I mean, maybe this album blew up, but yeah, it's crazy. What a great album.
Yeah, they have that song "Scandinavian Dream," which is like a big one of their big singles from the album, which is a phenomenal song, by the way. Now, since you've heard the whole thing, then the whole album, we joked around with them their song "Hysteria." We joked around with that being a cover of a Muse song.
Yeah.
What'd you think when they got to that part of the song when they went "Hysteria," and it was like clearly a Muse reference? They do it twice in the album. On the album, they have direct Muse Muse like references twice. There's one in "Scandinavian Dream," and there's one in the track before that, which I think is "Hysteria." It's like this big giant chorus thing, like of all these vocal harmonies. It sounds just like Muse. I guarantee.
That's great. I think hysteria is too common a word and is only just a single word. And it's like, it's impossible to know if that is a direct reference to anything by that.
No. If you heard it, you would be like, yeah, it is for sure.
I mean, maybe, but still, like, that's not going to hold up in court.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it would.
I think that description is just such a great, like, micro analysis of the album as a whole. Is like, they do goofball stuff like that. They have things that sound like Muse. They've got a song about Matthew McConaughey. And it is just like this really tight, fun, high energy metal of whatever variety, I suppose, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's
Alternative
great.
metal, I think they call it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, by the way, in case anyone's curious how I described the album that ruined it for him and for me, I'll let you all know as well. The perfect way to describe this album is it is a combination of Five Finger Death Punch meets Hollywood Undead.
And, like, I don't care about either of those bands. Like, Five Finger Death Punch never did nothing wrong to me. And Hollywood Undead, I certainly did not like when they were popular for the brief moment I heard them 10 years ago. So it's like, why on earth would I care that you describe it that way? But, it is nice to hear that also ruined it for you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the reason that they're not probably higher up on my list is because to me, this album felt very similar to an album I talked about several years ago by a band called Smash Into Pieces, which they released an album this year too, but it's nowhere near as good as their album from a few years ago called Arcadia. It's so like bubblegum pop, but heavy that it makes me feel like it's like feels so manufactured that it's like fake. But the thing is, like, I think this is really just these guys making a solid album. And the word you said that I love that you said was energy. This album just feels so energetic from front to back. every chorus is catchy. Every song has some unique element to it. Like the one song sounds a little bit more like sort of Panic at the Disco type thing. One song sounds like Five Finger Death Punch. One song has more rap stuff in it. There's Muse references for sure. I guarantee they're direct references. The Matthew McConaughey song is like one of the best songs of the year easily.
And every song is so tight and efficient.
Yes.
It's like a sandwich that's made only of the middle of the sandwich, like just all the way around.
Yeah, it really is. Like, it really does feel like a pop song in metal format. Like, it's really weird. Like, it really is really good. It's really cool. Like, on one hand, it kind of reminds me of Bad Omens, I guess, a little bit in what it's doing, but also it's not like Bad Omens really at all. Like, I don't think
it's not nearly as moody. It's not as dynamic.
Yeah,
but it's fun.
It's just so
Set It Off
consistent.
is my ultimate. Yeah. Consistent is good. That's true. Very much so. Consistency. And that's my ultimate comparison is that Set It Off album, because like every song was high energy, every song was different, and like felt like it was, people made it because they wanted to, not because they had to, like just top to bottom. And this has that same vibe to it.
For sure. 100%. Okay. All right. Are you good with that?
I'm good.
This was my
that's
number
it.
10, I believe, and your number 3.
I was surprised that it was so
low.
low.
I just have. Well, and that's the thing. Like, that's where we were kind of talking before about like top albums can be like favorite albums, and then it could also be like best albums, right? Like, I would enjoy listening to this album way more than that Beth Gibbons album that I was talking about. But like to me, the Beth Gibbons album, there's like a musicianship, there's like a snobby quality to it that like it takes it like light years above being better than this album. But the thing is, I would rather listen to this album probably 10 times to that one, because that one's a little bit difficult to listen to. You have to focus on it. This is like bubblegum, like popcorn, Transformers movie, Marvel movie, like in music form, and it's just really good and consistent all the way through. Before we move on, I just have to say we're now getting to the most important parts of the video, and the quality of Chris's track is just terrible, and his audio is like 4 seconds delayed, and I'm gonna have to try to somehow find a way to like fix it, but it is not going to be consistent. So I just apologize to everybody watching. Like, I'll try to match the words up with what he's saying, and also like the audio quality is going to be weird. It's dipping. We've never really had bad issues like this before. It seems like it might be a little bit better now, but like I'm really hoping it can hang in there. Like, you look better now. Can you say something, Chris?
Yeah, the numbers are going up.
Yeah, you look fine now. You're totally in sync now. So I just want to tell everyone I'll try as hard as I can, but I understand we've been recording now for like 6 hours, so like we are going to just keep going and get through this, but we're not going to rush because this is what we've been waiting for to talk about. Yeah. So, okay. So now we're on to my number 3, I believe.
Yep.
My number 3 came in the mail today. My number 3. Can you read it?
Oh, nice. That's very exciting.
This is my very first ever Poppy album that I have in CD format. Sorry, I should say that. So, and also, look, made in the Czech Republic, home of Robin Schenk.
Yeah, he's probably heard of her.
Artist. I'm sure he's heard of her. They should tour together, but
they should.
She should work with him and make an orchestral album. That would be great. So I have a feeling we will talk about this album in a little bit.
We may.
There's no way this album's not on your list. Shut up.
Right.
And the thing is, like, I knew this was going to happen, that we were going to be like, because I suspect this is your number 1. I would be surprised if it's not. Right. But that means this is not my number one or my number
Right.
two, right?
I am not surprised that it's not your number one.
Okay.
I'm actually pretty happy that it's all the way up at number 3. I had kind of forgotten that it was an option for you, to the point where I thought maybe it just didn't make the list, but I didn't really think about it too much. So it is
Okay.
nice to see that it's number 3.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing like. Do you want to just talk about it now, or do you want to wait till? Let's wait till we get to it on
wait.
your list. So I think this is going to appear on Chris's list later. So now that means we are on to your number 2.
Number 2 is As It Ever Was, So It Will Be Again by the Decemberists.
Okay. Interesting. All right.
They made it to number 2.
Okay. Wow.
Darling, stay right close to me. Do just as you should. For if you go in their company, oh, then you're gone for good. Don't go to the woods.
So they have that yellow album, The King Is Dead, I think is what it's called. I really
Okay.
need to look that up.
Yes.
And that was my first introduction to the Decemberists. And that was, The King Is Dead, 2011. And they have, so Pick RS from 2005 is, I guess, everybody's, ultimate Decemberist album, which I completely disagree with. It's not good. But then they have The Crane Wife, which is incredible. And then they waited a few years, and The King Is Dead. So they have the Decemberists have two very distinct vibes, musical sounds at this point. And they've got older stuff like King Is Dead and Crane Wife. And then in 2015 they had What a Terrible World, What a Beautiful World. And that's the one you're probably familiar
Correct.
with.
That's the one I'm familiar with that you showed me. That was when we were doing the music room. So yes, that's for 1,000% what it is.
Yeah. And that one has two of my favorite songs of all time on it. And that's Till the Water's All Long Gone and then Carolina Low. Not my favorite album ever, but two of my favorite songs of all time. And then they put out something else after that I did not care much for. It was I'll Be Your Girl from 2018. I listened to it a couple of times. It didn't really do anything for me at all. It was a miss. But so now it's been 6 years since that album came out. So ultimately, for me, it has been almost 10 years since the Decemberists put out an album that, as far as I'm concerned.
Good point.
Because they did that album I love, and then Something I Didn't Touch ever. And so now we've got a new Decemberists album for the first time in almost 10 years. And it's got, Terrible World, Beautiful World is when they had their shift in sound a little bit. And I don't have any idea how to describe the difference. I would say that the older sound is a little bit more folksy or woodsy.
Okay.
I guess.
Okay.
And this new album does have a really nice blend of both of those worlds.
Okay.
But they have a song on here called Don't Go to the Woods that just is so much of those two songs that are my favorite songs of all time from Terribly Beautiful. And this album's really great. It's so much, it's not quite as good as Terrible Beautiful. There's a few songs in here that are just but a lot of really, really catchy stuff.
Okay.
And Don't Go to the Woods all on its own is enough to put this in the top 5.
I was going to say, is it as good as those other two songs? That particular song?
No, but I would say When the Water's All Long Gone and Carolina Low are very different from each other. And so you could take this song and put it in the same, if it was just on the same album, you wouldn't think anything was amiss other than that album has 3 unbelievably good songs on it. They're almost laterally excellent.
Okay. Interesting.
And they have this fantastic, you remember that first Hozier album when this deluxe edition had out that In the Woods Somewhere song?
I think
where
so.
It's just all vibes, where it's this really chill, spooky kind of dark song about just a call, a cry from somewhere in the deep woods. this song has that kind of like dark mystery vibe, and it's really good stuff. Man, oh man.
That's awesome. Yeah, I remember at the time you were really frustrated with me because I was like, I just don't like Irish accents. And you're like, this dude doesn't have an Irish accent. I'm like, yes, he does. And we argued about it for quite a bit. And I was at the end of the day, I was
He's
just
from
like,
Oregon.
this dude has an Irish accent. I was like, yes, he does. So it's very funny.
He doesn't.
I know. I just remember
He doesn't. He's
saying
from
that at the time. Well, his ancestors could be Irish.
I remember. Yeah, but I mean, if he doesn't,
I know.
There's
I'm
no
just,
Irish in the way he talks.
okay. Right.
But he has. No, I know, but I will say that the style, like his style of singing has a real Celtic vibe to it.
Yeah, and I think
sure.
that's what it is. Yeah, for sure. I probably said the wrong, like that's probably a better way to say it, but it just seemed very like, yeah. But good. I'm glad this like showed up this year because like it feels like it's been so long since you did talk about the Decemberists, and you were just really all about them for those few years we were doing the music room. You would bring them up for like examples of everything when we were talking about stuff, and it just then it seemed like they went away for you for a long time. So.
And they kind of did. Like, they went away for themselves. Like, they only had
exactly.
one album
Yeah.
between then and
That's
now.
what we were talking about earlier with bands that just release albums so, like, sparingly, between 5-6 years between albums. So.
And, I mean, they have... And oddly enough, their monthly listen number is significantly lower than I would have expected from a band that's been around as long as they have, that's as popular as they are. They're only at 718,000 per month, which is that's
no slouch.
nothing... That's no slouch, but it still is like, really? Wow, that seems low. But I doubt, I mean, when you've got 700,000 listeners per month, I don't think that you're taking time off because you need to go cover some Home Depot shifts. Like, you're fine.
Maybe. I don't know. It's kind of... Maybe they, for those few years, they didn't have any listeners, very many listeners, but I mean, they probably did. But
yeah,
that's the interesting thing about Spotify. Like, how much do those numbers change per month?
Right.
Like when Black Keys release a single, is that month, do they have 30 million plays, or probably, rather than their 9 million that they have now in sort of like the settling in between times type thing. So that's interesting. All right. So we're on to my number 2. Okay. So do you want to try to guess what my number 2 is? I know that's a weird question, but like, it's not poppy.
Right.
And
is it one I know of?
You definitely know.
Is it one that we reviewed?
Yes, it is.
That we remembered? And I was there?
Mm-hmm.
Ride the Lightning.
I'll give you a hint.
It's Pink.
Why isn't that doing anything for me?
I have no idea what this is.
It's Linkin Park. It's Linkin Park's album From Zero. Linkin Park. So here's the thing. Here's the thing. This is a thing.
This, what you're doing right now is exactly what my mom does when she's drunk. Here's the thing.
Here's the thing.
This is the thing. Here's the thing. And then she just never says it.
Okay, well, I wasn't doing that on purpose to evoke that, but whatever.
Right, but it's very funny.
So here is the thing. If you would have told me at the beginning of the year that we were going to get a new Linkin Park album, I'd have slapped you silly because there's no way, right? There's no way.
Right.
Now, we've all wondered for years, what's Linkin Park going to do? What are they going to do? For years now, the last few years, they have been releasing deluxe editions, 10th anniversary, 20th anniversary editions of Hybrid Theory and Meteora. They've been releasing little songs, snippets of things here and there of like bonus songs, like old songs that they had remade, stuff that they were like B-sides that they never released, and they're releasing them now with modern technology and stuff. And so it felt like they were more and more in the zeitgeist the last like 4 years. And then there's all these rumblings. Linkin Park's coming back. They got a new singer. It's Amy Lee from Evanescence. Everyone was so sure. Amy Lee gives a thing, and she's like, I met them once. They've never asked me that. I would love to be the singer of Linkin Park, but no, they've never talked to me about it.
They could never get away with her as the singer.
No,
like
it would
their
be a different
style
band.
doesn't fit hers at all.
It'd be a different band. I don't know why people thought that, but
That's so funny.
well, you know why? Because her name is Amy Lee, and it was Emily Armstrong. But anyway,
No.
I digress. Then all of a sudden on Linkin Park we get this like 50 days countdown from now, and it counts down. They come out, new singer Emily Armstrong. The new album is announced. I'm shocked. We have all of my reaction to all of this live on the channel when we were listening to it and watching it. I'm shocked. I can't believe they announced the album and that it came out. It makes total sense from a marketing perspective. The album comes out. I like it. We're doing the reaction. I'm into it. I can't believe the decisions that they made to make the album so dynamic. It sounds so different and at the same time evokes all the Linkin Park albums. Mm-hmm. And every song is great. I think I get all the songs stuck in my head, all of them. It's like one of the best Linkin Park albums, if not the best Linkin Park album.
This is much different than how you sounded when we actually did the reaction.
Well, I remember I was very positive on it. I know that. But I don't think that I realized how great it was until after I started listening to it after the fact. And I just...
Well, that happens to me a
Yeah.
lot. Like with Poppy's previous album, Zig.
Right.
Like, we listened to it and I was like, yeah, I'm kind of vibing on this. This is all right. But it ended up being one of my favorite albums of last year. So good.
Yeah. And then I was listening to it in the car. I was showing my mom, and I was just like, every song I could sing along with. And I'd only heard it like one or two times. And I'm like, that does not happen very often. I'm not normally I have to hear a song a bunch before I can sing along with it. And I don't listen to music like a bunch in a row ever. And I just listened to this album like several times over several days. And I was just like, this is incredible. And as much as I love the Poppy album, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, and I'll probably have even more nice things to say than this album, this just shocked me. I was like, I cannot deny how awesome this is. And there's a lot that goes into this that's beyond just the music too. Like I like Linkin Park. Chester's death affected me probably more than any celebrity death I've ever experienced. I was at the studio at the time. I brought my Linkin Park CDs in and just sat for like a full day and listened to all their albums on our $30,000 speakers and just blasted them. And I was just like, it was awesome. And I like a lot of Linkin Park that a lot of people don't. That's the stuff. I think their last album is one of their best albums, and there's not a guitar to be found on it. It's just electronic music, electronic pop music. And this album has that. It has songs that are obviously like, shut up. And this one is, whatever she says, I can't be quiet. Like it's so stupid. It's like so obviously the same thing. But then there's just like all the heavy is the crown. And then all the just like, it's just so good. Like every song is great. The production is great. The fact that it's so loose, you can hear them in the studio talking. The album starts with her going, haha, oh yeah, or something. Oh yeah. Oh, that's right. Your name, your original name. Like, it's like this album is made for people who love Linkin Park, and they didn't care whether or not anyone else would like it. And they happened to just do what they always do and make a fantastic album.
Yeah.
And so
it is an incredible feat to get a new singer and gel with them enough to make an album this good right out of the gate.
Absolutely. So Linkin Park, From Zero, 11 songs, 32 minutes, evoking their first album.
Yep, classic Linkin Park.
54.1 million monthly listeners.
Nice. They still got it.
Linkin Park is
Clearly.
from California, USA. So there's nothing else that needs to be said about this. I am shocked that it's my number 2 for the year. It's the highest any Linkin Park album has ever been on my list. Mm-hmm. I love it. I think it's fantastic.
That's great. And boy, oh boy, did they shotgun the song from the album into everybody everybody's face all over the world. Like it is,
They did.
it's in Arcane. It was the song, the bookend song for the Game Awards. Like it was everywhere.
Yes, they really marketed the crap out of this whole album. The way that they did the release, they came out and it's like you can't do this, but it was like they were anticipating all the crap that people were going to throw at them, and they did every single thing possible to avoid all of it out front, and they were just like, we're going to, like, try to complain about this, people, you know? They were like, you know, try to complain about this, you know? And it's just like, they came out, they did the live show, so everyone knew she could perform. She did fantastic on all the old songs. The 2 new songs they did were interesting and cool. They released the singles. People reacted to them. They loved it. The album comes out. It's varied. There's electronic songs. Mike does the best performance he's ever done on an album. She's great. She evokes Chester, but at the same time sounds like the modern, like edgy female singer, right? Female fronted rock singer. And so it's just perfect. It's just everything come together for this. And it is manufactured. They have billions of dollars to spend on this. They made billions of dollars off of this. But the thing is, it worked perfectly. It was flawless. I don't think it's a flawless album, but honestly, like very few
flawless
things.
Execution.
Yeah, very few things to complain about too. Like the fact that the album is as dynamic as it is. Like though when the heavy comes in and hits you, it really hits you. Like that's taking a risk almost in making the album so dynamic. The drums sound so loose. I could talk forever about how the songs sound and how that is a risk in and of itself. But I mean, our reaction to the album is here on the channel. I agree with everything we said at the time. I think the songs are fantastic. I think. Sorry, I took this off of Do Not Disturb. Now it's on Do Not Disturb again. Fantastic. From Zero by Linkin Park, my number 2 album of 2024. No one ever would have thought that. No one would have had that on their bingo card ever, I guarantee.
So, it's time to talk about Poppy. The least surprising thing of the year. When the singles were dropping for this, I was like, oh boy, here we go. She's back at it. These songs, I was a little bit worried at first because some of the songs were like a different flavor of metal than she had been doing so far. And it kind of felt like she's doing a lot of genre hopping just as she puts out music. And maybe this one is going down sort of like maybe like an Evanescence route where it's like, this is significantly more comparable to like contemporary metal and music that's like this. Like she was sort of blending into all of the different music that already exists in this way. And it was hitting a little bit less interesting than her previous work because her previous stuff is very uniquely interesting in the way that only she makes it. And the 3 main singles were like those first 3 songs. Have You Had Enough? The Cost of Giving Up, They're All Around Us. Those are the 3, like those and New Way Out. I heard those. I was like, well, I mean, these are all, the metal's crazy. So this whole album's going to be metal, super metal. But I was also like, yeah, but they feel a little bit less interesting. Like they're a little bit samey and they're not super poppy sounding. And maybe we're going to just lose out on what made her unique in favor of making something that is just going down a different path than usual.
Gotcha.
But I was still pretty pumped for it because she hasn't, like, it's been a couple of albums since she did anything metal, really. I think. There wasn't much,
yes.
I don't think there was any metal on Zig.
No, and Flux was...
I don't think there's any metal on Flux, right?
No, it's been since she did that Eat EP, really. Which was between Flux and
Well,
I
I
Disagree.
was... Okay, so yeah. So it's been a while. And she put out a couple albums that weren't metal, so I was like, when is she going back?
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of excitement in that regard because the last time she made a metal album, it was my number 1 for the year. I Disagree. Unbelievable. Such a good album. But then the album actually came out and I had already listened to about half of it when we reacted to it, but your reaction was the most appropriate thing for what was happening.
Yes, because we listened to the first 3 songs and I was kind of like, okay, I don't know about this. And then we got to Crystallized and my world was shattered. I was like, I don't know what to expect from here on out. It could be literally anything from here on out. And that's what she gave us. Everything. She gave us everything. This is a fantastic album. And I just want to point out, I opened this to just see what we got here, to see what's on the disc, to see what's like, the disc is just her, which is fine. I think I really don't like this image at all because it feels like, it looks like, to me, and I don't think it's supposed to, or maybe it is, but like, it looks like her hair is coming off into the like puddle of milk.
It does look like that.
I think what's happening is they sprayed the crap out of her hair black, and then she went in there, and so I think the black you're seeing in there is actually coming from her hair.
I mean, it's definitely like an artistically staged
$1,000,000%
situation. I think that it's supposed to potentially evoke like the swirls in like a marble countertop, but yeah, it's got these, these black inky swirls in this white pool. I don't have any idea what's supposed to be happening there from the perspective of negative spaces, but
very
far be it from me to try to decipher anybody's album
and not
cover.
that we need to discuss the cover too much, but there's some very questionable photoshopping right here. Like, I'm not sure what this is supposed to be. Like, I assume it's her hip, like, extending that way, but maybe there was too much there, and so they're like, because this is clearly like fakely faded here. It's weird. But I will say, and I really don't want to be creepy about this. I really don't want to. However, I do not have any problem with that photo there. I feel like that's much less photoshopped, and I feel like that would have made a better cover, but, you know, I guess I can understand why they didn't. But, for me, from an artistic standpoint, I sure don't have any problems with that photo. But
I mean, you could definitely talk about, photo composition and just like which photo you think is a better photo.
Yeah, I know, but like really one of the main reasons I like this is just, I mean, it really is. It really is. And I don't want to spend too long because there's also definitely a lot of photoshopping going on here too. And I'm not going to just touch this a lot like that, but there's a lot of fake like fogging being done here. So like, whatever. But I did open the booklet to see it does have production credits for each song on the back, which is kind of nice. And I'm not going to go through it now, but like that's nice. And then there's no pictures inside the book. It's literally just the artwork. I'm sorry, not the artwork, the lyrics. Cool. And it's done in a really nice, cool, like there's some upside down text. So like it's artistically done really nice. So I like that. I do want to say while we're talking about it, shout out to Leprous and Frost for actually having jewel cases. Everybody and their dog releases a digipack nowadays because it's cheaper. But so in terms of we mentioned the Birthday Massacre a lot when we were talking about this album, and when I went back and have listened to it a few times since then, boy, is there Birthday Massacre influence. Like, I just don't see any way that she is not a fan of a lot of the music that you and I like, Chris. There's no way. She has to be a fan of Poppy. She has to be a fan of the Birthday Massacre. She has to.
Who?
Poppy.
Poppy has to be a fan of Birthday Massacre?
Yes.
Because you said she has to be a fan of Poppy.
Oh,
I thought maybe
I'm sorry. I meant Lights. I'm so sorry. Poppy. There's no way Poppy.
Oh, so she has to be a Lights fan.
Yes.
Yeah.
She has to be a Lights fan. She has to be a Birthday Massacre fan. I bet she enjoys In This Moment. Like, and I'm not saying anything like crazy, but like, I really think that the music that Poppy likes to listen to is a lot of the music that we like because it's like undeniably the Birthday Massacre on there. Like, undeniably. And we've.
It is. It's so much. That's what I would. And like, yeah.
We talked about this with Zig. Like, it's so blatantly Lights sounding, some of the songs, that like they even use some of the same verbiage and stuff. And I'm just like, yes, there is at some point, there's just like this is pop music and it's what it is. But there's no way. it's gotta be influenced. And that just makes me like her even more. And I didn't think I could because she's so damn cool.
Yeah.
And then I found out she's from Nashville.
I know.
And I was just like, dang it. She's from Nashville.
Oh, that's
and
interesting.
Her real name is like Tiffany something. I asked Alexa, I was like, how old is Poppy? And she's like, Poppy? Or I said, where's Poppy from? Hey, Google, where is the singer Poppy from? Let's see what she says.
That Poppy was born in Boston, Massachusetts, United States.
Boston, Massachusetts. She's my cousin from
Not
Boston.
Her name's Mariah.
Mariah?
Mariah Rose Pereira.
Yes, that's what it is.
Pereira.
And I think she's like lives in Nashville now or whatever, which makes sense, I guess, because it's one of the music capitals of the United States.
see.
And hey, she doesn't live in California, so that's points in my book. But yeah, but whatever. All this superficial crap aside, the album's so good. It's varied. The production is great.
It is.
They're All Around Us is like top song, top tier, all like top 5 songs of the year.
That song is so good.
I know, and people were like kind of bagging on it
love
when it
that
came
song.
out. I went back through and I watched some of my channels react to some of her music because I had seen that they had reacted to Poppy singles, but I didn't want to hear anything until we heard the album. And so I went back and watched a couple channels react to it, and they were all like, oh, this is really great. But a couple people were like, oh, this is so derivative or something, or like, this is just so, like, they were rolling their eyes. And I'm like, come on, man, this is awesome. Poppy is so cool. And I think this is a heavier album than I Disagree, even though I do think that there were like heavier, more like breakdowny parts on I Disagree. But like, this is way more mature of an album. It's drawing influences from a lot more things rather than just sort of like baby metal, which is kind of what, just crazy Japanese metal was kind of what I Disagree was being. She was using her like that Poppy, like her that Poppy persona still doing metal. Whereas she's gone from that now.
Yeah.
Now she's just Poppy, and
That's true.
And
Now
she
she's
is
just
really
Poppy,
doing her
yeah.
own thing. Like the biggest question I have is, what is she gonna do next? Because I imagine
what in the world
she's
could
gonna
she do
tour
next?
with this for quite a while. So it'll probably be 2 years until we get another album from her. But like,
She's got a show coming out here that sold out immediately, and I'm trying to decide if I want to try to find the money to go to it through, like StubHub or whatever, or if I want to see if she's still got a spot open in Portland. But I was really annoyed by that.
have you seen her live yet?
I did. I saw her January of 2020. I saw her, and she
Okay.
wrecked, man. She was
Yeah.
so good.
So at least if you don't get the chance to see her for this tour, at least you got to see her before, But
And there'll be plenty of tours to come.
yeah, for sure. I bet the next album is something so different. Like maybe it'll be pop music or something again, but like I feel like she's more popular now than she's ever been, and people have really been like, I wouldn't be surprised if she was nominated for a Grammy. Like I think Knocked Loose.
She was for I Disagree.
Oh really?
It looks like
Oh man.
the single Blood Money from I Disagree received a nomination for a Grammy Award for Best Metal Performance.
Huh. Speaking of Blood Money, I was
And
just
she
itching my
became the
leg.
first solo.
Sorry.
She became the first solo female artist to be nominated in that category. Well, that's pretty neat.
For best metal performance?
Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I think she actually is nominated. I don't know if they haven't I don't think they've announced the Grammy things yet, but I think they're going to get best metal performance as Knocked Loose and Poppy on Jimmy Fallon as like a best metal performance. They're trying to nominate that. I think
okay.
I've seen like a for your consideration thing, because Spirit Box is also really pushing I've seen it on Facebook twice today, for your consideration for the Grammy Awards. Spirit Box performing one of the songs off that EP of theirs, which had like 3 great songs on it and 2 mediocre songs. But so yeah, that's Poppy, and I just can't. I really easily could have made it my number 2, but that Linkin Park album just. There's more. I have history with Linkin Park, and there's more in the world that goes on around that album that I feel like makes it interesting. And there was more fighting against that album being as good as it was than like there was nothing fighting against this. You know what I mean? But Linkin Park, there was
Yep.
everyone being like, no, 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 no. And then the album comes out and you're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. You know, so
Yeah.
100%.
I'm super curious what your number one is.
Right. I've been saying it all year long. I've mentioned it multiple times. This is not a band that we've ever really talked about. It came out in January. I listened to it all in a row when I was sitting in the hospital for when I was there at the beginning of the year. The album came out and I didn't know it was even out, and I listened to it, and it must have just come out like that week. And I had just gotten Spotify Premium, and I know exactly where I was sitting. I'll remember it forever. And now this whole thing I'm talking about now has nothing to do with how great the album is, but I sat and with stupid, terrible little earbuds, I sat and I listened through my phone to this album, and I was just like, well, that's the album of the year. I said that I think on like January 13th or something, and all year there were several things fighting against it. You know, for a while I was like, the Black Keys is number one, and then I was like, no, Leprous is number one, and then Poppy was number one. But I kept coming back to it and listening to it, and like the album I'm talking about is Love Will Fix It by Emil Bowles. This is what did you think I was going to say?
Well, because I thought it was going to be Big Big Train, but then I remembered a little bit ago you said something about their album from this year not being.
And you're right in thinking, because Big Big Train is the band I discovered while I was in the hospital, and I listened to some of their older albums, and then their album from this year didn't come out till later in the year, and I don't think it's as good as the stuff I was listening to at the beginning of the year. But Love Will Fix It by Emil Bowles. They're a German metal band. I have been a fan of theirs for a long time. I have many of their albums. This album is 12 songs, 47 minutes. And I just told you before we started recording at the very beginning, I don't think it made it into the cut because we weren't recording at the beginning. But I just found out today while setting up for this that there is a deluxe edition of this album that's going to be released on January 17th, 2025, 1 year later, that has 15 songs and is 56 minutes. So this album is going from being my number one to my number one plus because three extra songs, they're all over 3 minutes. I listened to parts of two of them earlier today because they have two of them out as singles already. They have one that's going to come out in January as a single. The only physical version of this that they're releasing is a special 500 limited count of this double vinyl that they're releasing. And the vinyl is so freaking cool. It has the cover of the album are these two black swans with their heads in the shape of kind of like a heart on a black background. And if you look up the deluxe edition, Chris, I don't know if that's what you're looking up now, but look up Emil Bowles, EMILBULLS, deluxe edition.
Yeah, I've got them on.
Look at how freaking sweet that the vinyl records look. They has like these like swan heads on them. One's black, one's white. One's white with black swans, one's black.
Oh, cool.
It looks so freaking sweet, and there's only 500 of them, and it's $45, but I don't want to spend $45 on stupid vinyl. I'd rather spend $25 on the CD, but I can't afford the regular version of the CD because it's like $30 minimum on eBay or wherever they're selling it from. So I don't think they're ever going to release it, but whatever. That's why we can listen to it and possibly acquire the files in other ways. But this album.
What?
You're sorry. Go ahead.
There was another Emil Bowles year where you showed that they were in your top 12 at one point. I don't know which other album that was.
Let me see what year they have a perfect album. This is a perfect album, but they have one other perfect album called Oceanic. And I believe I discovered them after that album came out. So I don't think that album was ever on my list. But they maybe some of their catalog is not on. Yeah, Oceanic is actually not on Spotify. I think it came out 2011. So it's between Phoenix and Sacrifice to Venus. Now, you and I talked about this band quite a bit around 2016 when their album XX came out. That was their 20th year as a band. And they that is we were talking about Candlelight albums, and that is their Candlelight album. It's acoustic sort of covers of a lot of their songs from earlier in their career. And that's cool because they're a metal band. And so they're covers, acoustic covers of metal songs, and they've slowed them down, made them, really interesting. The problem is with Emil Bulls, and actually, so the first album of theirs that I heard was Phoenix, but that was after I listened to Oceanic, which was 2011. Again, Oceanic is a perfect album front to back. I have the deluxe edition that has like 17 tracks on it. My favorite ballad of all time, Dancing on the Moon, is on that album. It's literally a perfect album. And I've wanted to show it to you for years, but we never really had a reason to. Then they released Sacrifice to Venus, which is not my favorite album of theirs. Their big song on that album was Party with Your Pants Down, which was not my favorite. Then they released XX. Then they released Kill Your Demons, which is for some reason just incredibly boring. Then in 2019, they released an album called Mixtape, and that is all covers. And they have a really awesome cover that I think I showed you of You Should See Me in a Crown.
Oh,
like
nice.
we were talking earlier, Billie Eilish.
That sounds familiar.
And so then 5 years later, they come out with Love Will Fix It. So Emil Bulls is a metal band from Germany. I have always loved them because they do, to me, what Raunchy also does. My favorite metal band of all time. And what Mook does. I like fun metal that is not comedy metal. That's a big distinction for me. Because I do enjoy some comedy metal. Like, I love We Butter the Bread with Butter. But We Butter the Bread with Butter is meant to be laughed at while you're impressed with the technical musicianship. Fun metal is just metal that is fun to listen to. It could be, parts of it could sound like it's from in a major key instead of a minor key. It can still be the heaviest thing you've ever heard. There can still be thrash riffs. There can still be guitar solos. There can be whatever you want. There can be clean singing, screaming, whatever you want. But there's just an element of fun to it. It's not necessarily a take yourself seriously, but it's not a comedy band. So Emil Bulls, to me, is like the epitome of that. This dude sings like other members of other metal bands should beat this guy up for sounding as wussy as he does when he sings. Like, he sounds like such a weenie when he's singing, but it is so glorious and beautiful and like poppy in a way that is, and when I say poppy, I mean like pop, not Poppy the artist. Like pop. It's so disgusting, and it just works. I absolutely adore it. I love it. This album, Love Will Fix It, is by far their heaviest album they've ever released. Every song feels like a metal song. On their previous albums, that is not the case. Oceanic has maybe like, I would say 3 songs that are like full-on metal songs. Every other song is mostly clean singing with a little bit of heaviness every now and then. No breakdowns, very rarely a guitar solo. This album, great production, super catchy every single song. You can sing along with every chorus, which I feel is a big important part with fun metal. Heavy riffs, super heavy breakdowns during parts. I'm not heavy in the way that Falling in Reverse or Lorna Shore is heavy. Certainly nothing like that. But like heavy for them, heavy for, and like one of the things that they like to do in their music that I just can't stand is he insists on having lyrics that are like more poetic and they don't rhyme. And so he's like, you'll get to the chorus of a song and he's doing this awesome lyrical thing and it just doesn't seem catchy and the melody is kind of boring and I just can't stand that. And it doesn't rhyme and I'm not saying that you have to be like like everything has to rhyme and everything has to be the Black Keys. I'm not saying that everything has to be pop music. But like this album in particular, every chorus is a soaring chorus and you can sing along with it and there's layers of vocals and it's so well done and not everything rhymes, but it doesn't have to because of the way they've done it. The rhythms are all catchy. Like the riffs are heavy and hard and some of them are fast, some of them are slow. Some of them don't make any sense at all and it's so silly and stupid. Like one of the songs is called A Whirlwind of Hate, I think it's called. Yeah, Whirlwind of Doom. It's kind of hard to explain without making it sound stupid, because honestly, it is kind of stupid. Really, it is. Like their song,
Well, and that's
right,
fun.
it's fun. Like their song "Love Will Fix It" is like an over-the-top, dripping with sweetness honey song that's just like, it's so happy that it's like sick. It's kind of sick, which is awesome because the next song is sick. But then like the first song is like, Backstabbers is probably one of the catchiest songs. It was their first single. And the chorus is just like, backstabbers, I'm done with you forever. All you like malicious people, backstabbers, to hell with you forever. I'm blah, 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 blah. You're always busy, whatever. Like it's catchy as heck, super heavy in ways that they haven't really been, only on very few songs in the past. My favorite song, which we're going to listen to when we do samples of this. My favorite song is Happy Birthday, You Are Dead to Me. Such a great song. Fantastic. I also love Love Will Fix It. She Ain't Coming Home No More is good. It's just, I can hear you're listening to Love Will Fix It.
I'm not.
Or which one are you listening to?
Nothing. I'm listening to you.
Oh,
It's your phone.
that's my phone. I was like, he's listening to it. I can hear it through his headphones. You dummy. It's so good. It's so fun. It's so heavy. It's very consistent, which we've talked about already. Which consistency is something that really does matter to me a lot with these albums. Like, you can have one or two really great songs, but unless it's consistent, I'd rather have a consistently great album rather than a song with 2 or 3 really high points on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That, at least I love those high points, but an album that's consistently great would be better than an album with 3 like godly songs,
Right.
So yeah, that's my number one. Emma Bulls, Love Will Fix It. I don't regret having this as my number one at all. Some years I say that I come across an album that's just like for me personally, and I don't expect anyone else to really like get how great this is. This isn't one of those times. I really do think that if you are a fan of heavy music, you should try to give this a listen, but come at it from the perspective of, this isn't your Slipknot, right? This isn't your American metal where you're supposed to be angry and you're driving on a motorcycle and like, it's not like that. This is fun. This is more, I think, the way people listen to Rammstein, kind of. Like they listen to Rammstein and they're like, haha, look at this. Look at this German guy. Look at what they're doing.
All of the people I've ever known to listen to Rammstein have none of that. They're very much approaching it from the traditional metal of like, I'm gonna listen to this
but
while I
that's
beat
not
up
what
my
Rammstein
stepdad,
is.
I know.
Yeah, but that's not what Rammstein is. And every word they've ever sung is in German. So it's like,
Right.
people just want to dance. They just want dancey metal. That's all Rammstein is. Rammstein fans are shallow. You should really enjoy Oomph, the real band, the real Dutch hard band from Germany. So, like, Emma Bull's also from Germany, not that type of band. There's no dancey on this. Though there's some songs you could dance to, but like, there's really no... One thing I would say is I would really appreciate this album if it did have the big ballad at the end of the album. They usually do that, and they have some songs that are just acoustic guitar and piano that are just fantastic, and his voice is so smooth and great, and he has a very unique singing voice, as I've already said. I think that, someone from one of those bands we're talking about would, like, any band that Chris Schoenberg likes would slap this guy in the face and be like, you stop that. You're bringing metal to a level we don't want it to be associated with. Whereas this guy is just like, nah, man, we're going to have fun. And I love it. I love it. It's so fun, so well done. And if you want to just listen to any song off this album, Backstabbers is a great place to start. When we do our video where we show each other clips of stuff from this, I'm going to show you Happy Birthday, You Are Dead to Me, because the riff, and then the chorus is just so good.
Well, that should do it then.
Yes, that should do it. One thing we always do at the end of these videos is we kind of talk about what we're looking forward to. So real quickly, we'll just say we're no longer looking forward to the band Convey, because it appears that they have called it quits.
Yes, their website is down. As of this morning, I looked and it did not. I tried to go to it and nothing happened.
Yeah.
Which is not a good sign usually. But here's hoping that any other reason exists and they're still working on an album and maybe one day. But we'll
I
look forward to
I
that
will
spirit.
for me, like on a serious note, we've already got albums that are planned for January, February, March. Avatarium is coming out with a new album. I'm very much looking forward to that. That's sort of doom prog stoner metal that I'm very much looking forward to. I really like all their previous albums. Spirit Box has a new album coming out, which we will be doing a reaction to. Hopefully the day it comes out, and I'll try to get that sucker out fast because people are going to be looking for that online.
Yep.
My favorite metal band of all time, one of my favorite bands of all time, Raunchy, who hasn't released an album or had any contact with the outside world for over 10 years now, posted just a few weeks ago a picture of them in the studio with the caption, almost done mixing the album or finalizing mixes for the album. And I didn't believe it. And I commented, I was like, yeah, right. I'll see it when I believe it. And all the
You
comments
told
were
this
like,
story already.
yeah, but I don't think I did it in the video.
I can't remember either. Yeah.
Well, if I did, whatever. So Raunchy may have an album come out next year. And if it does, stop the presses. Stop the presses, because that's earth shattering for me. I did not think we would ever get another Raunchy album. And if it's bad, Chris,
That's it.
I don't know what I would do. I really don't know.
If it's bad, you'll let the cancer win.
I was gonna make a joke about something like that, but then I chose not. I decided not to. But yes. Also, I suspect we'll get a new Soilwork album. There's also a new Night Flight Orchestra album coming out. That's already planned. But I'm guessing we'll get a new Soilwork album. We might get a new. We'll have to see. There's a new 40 Below Summer album coming out. I've been following them online this year. They've been working on it for the last few months, editing it and mixing it in the studio. 40 Below Summer, a band that's really special and important to me. And so if they have a new album come out, I'm very much looking forward to that. And who knows what else we'll get. Do you have anything that you have lined up that you think is...
Yeah. There's a new album coming out from Echoes, who I haven't really talked much about. I just learned about her a couple of years ago. Fantastic. It's sort of in that same like Halsey kind of vibe, but darker and spookier. And I would love to throw one of her songs your way and have you just recognize
that
how
sounds
good it
great.
is.
Darker, spookier than Halsey. Let's go. So
I'm
we'll
really
we'll
looking
probably
forward to
do a
that.
reaction to that.
And then
If that comes out.
it seems that there has been some sort of semi-official confirmation that we will see a new Icy Stars album next year.
Okay, that's interesting.
So that's very exciting. Don't know when yet, but next year it is. And probably a couple other things that I haven't thought of, but those are the only two that I am actively aware of.
Oh, new Lights album.
Oh, yeah, most likely. Yeah, very true, because she's already put out a single and she's been talking about it a lot.
Yeah, and she's also been saying like this album is reminiscent of this and this. So this is definitely, there will definitely be a Lights album, 100%.
Yeah.
I'm a little trepidatious, but we'll see. Her last album was phenomenal. So thank you everybody for watching. Thank you for, if you've watched all of the entirety of these two videos, thank you so much. You are a
leave
trooper.
a comment.
We'll give
Let
you
us
a
know that
cookie.
happened.
The cookie that we owe to people who watch it. We say it at the end of every one of these videos.
I've got a Steam code for a copy of Horizon Forbidden West Lego that I don't have anybody to give it to. So if you watched both of these and you're at this point, let me know and I'll give you that. You can have a free game.
There you go. That's awesome. I wish I had a computer that could do that because I really want that game, but I'll get it on.
I know you
PlayStation
do, and I
4
wish I could give it
5
to you.
eventually. Speaking of that, dude, Assassin's Creed Mirage, great,
No.
such good stuff. Okay, sorry, you're right. No, now's not the time. Now's
No,
not the time.
not now.
Okay, thank you everybody for watching, and we will see you all at the end of 2025 for our top 12 albums of 2025, unless I die of the cancer,
Right.
or of a car accident or airplane,
Hit
or
by a bus.
You could die
Plane
of
hits the house.
a dart. Someone could be throwing darts somewhere
Yep,
that you're
stuck right in the
at.
side of my head.
Exactly, hits the brain, and you're, a lot of things could
I
happen.
can only say 6 words and I can't walk anymore. So
Yeah, and if those 6 words were, well, anyway, yeah, we'll see you all next
we'll
time.
leave it up to your imagination.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Yes. Thank you so much.